involved in carbon sequestration? Is something happening within that protected area that implies a trade-off? What about access? What about water? What about economics? There's a whole bunch of things that there are trade-offs involved. And as public servants, what we've done is bringing that list down through. We have a methodology called a Q-sort methodology that we interact with various publics to make sure we can identify and understand where those trade-offs are. Who wins, who loses? What is the indigenous community? What water values do they have? What threatens those water values? Maybe it's something somebody over here benefits from. We have to figure that out. So we narrow that down to maybe 3 or 4. And we're doing our social vulnerability impact assessment on 3 or 4 of those values. We left the other 20-some and the other 100 way behind. And how we'd ever put all of those values together, we have no idea right now. We don't have the data to do that. It's not relevant to us. We're trying to feed into decisions that we have to make, focus on relevant stakeholders and relevant trade-offs. And that's the most we can do, we feel like. And that's all. We are interested in marginal values, and it's more marginal in terms of if we increase or decrease, frequency of fire, intensity of fire, change access, road building outside the wilderness, more allocation, designation. What's going to be that marginal change in ecosystem service benefits to these various stakeholders? So I took advantage of your stakeholder, of your trade-off word, and I know a lot about that, but I don't know much about carbon sequestration because it's not coming up with us. On the Shoshone National Forest in Wyoming, we're completely focused on water-based ecosystem service values, and that's it. That's the big deal there. So our whole climate change vulnerability assessment is focused on how water benefits are going to change over time and what we need to do to prepare for that. Okay, anything else? Questions or comments? Ian, do you have something?
A quick question for you, Andrew. So you said that your schemes are, you have a board of governments and non-government, a mixed sort of board. Those are the people who are deciding how you invest in your funds, right? And does that are they the same people who are then making the decisions on? So they decide on what you do with the money in terms of investment in the fund before you use it. Does that include stakeholders who make the decisions on how you spend it? It's the same group.
Just to clarify, it's not the Nature Conservancy sitting on the board or making the investment decisions. It's forgive me for using the word, the stakeholders in the water fund, in the watershed. So, and they think of themselves often as investors. In the case of Quito, for example, or in the case of Bogota, you have the municipal water utility sitting on the board. There is an alliance of, like a consumer alliance that sits on the board. You have the Bogota Brewery that is investing in the water fund sitting on the board, and other range of stakeholders. They have a fiduciary responsibility to manage the fund or assigned a trustee. And they make the decisions about where to invest the fund's money every year. These things are spinning off somewhere between $250,000 and about $800,000 a year to be invested each and every year. It increases as the capitalization goes up. And so these boards of the stakeholders, it's not TNC and it's not our money, are sitting there making the decisions themselves about how to manage the money and where to make the investments each year.
Great. No other questions, comments? I think we're done.
Yeah. So thanks very much to everyone who spoke, to the main speakers and the panel speakers. Thank you all for coming along and taking part. So I think it was been some interesting presentations on how we deal with some of the challenges to measuring each services of water, and then how you and how you manage those services, but there's still obviously plenty to do. But yeah, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you, Ian.
Welcome to the conference. The following short film contains important information for you before the conference begins.
To hear what you were saying.
As this is a multilingual conference, there are people in the audience who don't understand some of the conference languages. When you speak, your message will be translated into other languages by interpreters. They're saying what you say, for those in the audience who find it easier to follow in another language. To make it possible for the interpreters to communicate our ideas to the audience well, please remember this. Talking to a large audience can make nervous, and when we get nervous we tend to speak quickly. It's much easier for people to understand you if you pause occasionally and take your time. Although it's called simultaneous interpreting, interpreters need a split second of intense concentration to translate your message into other languages. And remember, some of the people listening to you without interpreters will not be fluent in your language. They're faster you talk, the more difficult it will be for them to understand you. When you speak, use a microphone. Speak clearly and directly into it, not across it or away from it. Simultaneous interpreters listen and speak at the same time, so they need to hear you clearly.
I can talk about it for 34 other
They can only do this if you speak directly into the microphone.
Thank you.
Please don't tap the microphone to see if it's working. This damages the appearance and the interpreter's hearing. Reading documents at conferences is less interactive than spontaneous speech. If you have a document, please remember the following. Firstly, you can try to think about what you were saying. You if you're speaking spontaneously, you think much more than you want to say. And everyone will understand better. Much better. Secondly, words are only a small part of the message. Put across a lot of different gestures and body. If you read the text, you are communicating only a small part of what you want to say. Reading reduces the force of the message. If you have to read, pace your delivery to make it interesting. Audience and interpreters will benefit. Also, if you have to write the script, make sure the interpreters have a copy of the document before you start, so they can communicate your message effectively. If you are using visual aids,